It's 5:30 and I'm going to call the Stephenville Regular City Council meeting into order. If you would, please stand and let's do the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible. In your agenda packet, Ken May was to lead the invocation tonight. We have instead in his place David Whiteman. Please, would you bow with us, please?
Thank you, Mayor. Our Heavenly Father, the last time I stood in this podium, we asked for rain, and we now publicly thank you for the rain. Some have said it was only a matter of time, but I'm here to testify your timing is impeccable. We give you honor and we give you glory for your grace and your mercy has poured out on us and will continue to do so, showing us your favor. And Father, we know that these are difficult times in our nation, and we come to you and we ask you to heal our land. We know that when the righteous rule, those that believe in justice, that rule out of common sense and common good, the nation prospers. And so we are asking that you would continue to bless the leadership of this city, of this county, and this state and this nation. But specifically tonight in our local leadership, we ask that you would give sight to those that are passing judgment and ruling over the hearts of our people. We pray that you would cause there to be civility in our people, and so that people would be able to express their differences without so much violence and anger, fear, resentment. We pray, Father, that we would awaken all of us to the reality that you want the best. You want the best for us, and we are willing to allow you to do that. We ask for a common grace, a goodness, a unity that's not uniformity. We pray for your good pleasure to be done here tonight. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you, Pastor Whitefield. Whiteman. There are two proclamations I'd like to read. First one is related to the Constitution. Whereas the Constitution of the United States of America, the guardian of our liberties, embodies the principles of limited government and a republic dedicated to rule by law. And whereas September 17th, 2018 marks the 231st anniversary of the drafting of the Constitution of the United States of America by the Constitutional Convention, and where it is fitting and proper to accord official recognition to this magnificent document and its memorial anniversary. And now, therefore, I, Doug Savine, by virtue of the authority vested in me as mayor of the city of Stephenville, do hereby proclaim September 17th through the 23rd as Constitution Week, and urge all citizens to study the Constitution and reflect on the privilege of being an American with all the rights and responsibilities which that privilege involves. Mayor Doug Savine.
Mayor, we got some people there.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry, I didn't know that they were
I'm
there.
sorry.
That's all right. I follow the order here. Okay, proclamation for Hunger Action Month. Who is here for that? Hunger Action Month. Someone here? Also have a proclamation for Hunger Action Month, and I want to read that now. Whereas 1 in every 6 people in North Texas struggle with hunger and food insecurity, including 1 in every 4 children. And whereas 13% of American households and 17% of American households with children do not consistently have enough nutritious food to eat. And whereas children from families struggling with hunger may be more likely to repeat a grade of elementary school, experience developmental impairments in areas like language and motor skills, and have more social and behavioral problems. And whereas partner agencies in Erath County are distributed food by the Tarrant Area Food Bank, which provide more than 2 million meals to over 53,000 households in 13 Texas counties monthly. And whereas the month of September has been designated as Hunger Action Month, in order to bring attention to the reality of food insecurity and promote ways for individuals to get involved in the movement and to end hunger, including volunteering, hosting food drives, and donating funds. Now I, therefore, Doug Savine, Mayor of the City of Stephenville, Texas, do hereby proclaim September to be Hunger Action Month and thank the Tarrant Area Food Bank for their work in the fight against hunger. Signed, Doug Savine, Mayor of Stephenville, Texas. Also, I'd like to note that there are many churches in Stephenville, Texas that participate in food and assist in the hunger problem that we have in this community, so we want to recognize those as well. Thank you very much. All right, next item is general discussion. Thank you all very much. General discussion, and I have one person who has signed up. Her name is Iris Jean Edwards. Would you like to take the podium? You have 3 minutes, ma'am.
Thank you very much for letting me speak to you. I want to tell you that I hired for a little more reliable than me and my yardstick. I hired a surveyor to remeasure and a surveying company, I should say, to the park more than 1,000 feet, to the school more than 1,000 feet. And I would ask for you to reconsider and give permission for my husband to live in my house on 838 North Paddock and for our forbearance.
Have you spoken with the chief about that request? Does it meet the requirements? Would you like to address that, or is it just administrative? Randy?
You want me to?
It's my understanding that the police have measured that from property to property. Doesn't meet the regulations. It's less than 1,000 feet.
Has she shown you the survey?
Yes.
Okay. Alan?
Mr. Mayor, I think the lack of communication here is, yes, her house is in fact more than 1,000 feet from the school, but it is not more than 1,000 feet from the school property. And the ordinance is very specific. It's property line to property line. And so her house is, Chief, you remember the number, is like 835 feet, 838 feet from the school property, not the school building.
Okay.
Not,
Go ahead.
not to be boring, but I told him though, the reason from my corner of my yard to the corner of that parking lot is through people's houses and yards with locks on them, and a person can't go that way. So you can go to the park, you can go to the school, but you can't go through people's houses and people's yards. It's why.
Okay. Is there a way she can appeal that?
Yes.
Okay. And how does she do that, Randy?
You want me to advise her?
No, and I'm not asking for advice, for her, give her legal advice.
She probably needs to get an attorney to advise her about that. There would be a way to appeal it.
Okay. Does that make sense? That you need to, if you've got an attorney, at that point he could contact either Alan or Randy, and they could advise your attorney on how to make an appeal of that 1,000-foot ruling. The way the rule is now is by the way the crow flies. Is that correct?
That's
Randy?
correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
So I guess you could either appeal that way or ask for the zoning ordinance or the requirement to
I'm
change.
not real sure how she would appeal it. I'm almost certain there's a way, but, I hesitate to advise her because number one.
You're not her attorney.
I'm not her attorney, and we could get into some conflicts, and I just advise her to seek an attorney. And
Do you have an
ask for
attorney?
advice.
Well, I'm not too wealthy, but someone told me that I might ask you for a forbearance, which I'm not an attorney, so I don't really know. I assumed that was something that would be some kind of.
This is not something the city council can waive, if that's what the question was.
Okay. So we can't waive the ordinance or waive the rule. So what you're saying is we'd either have to get an attorney to work with the city for whatever that term was you use, or,
Be glad to talk to her attorney.
okay. So that's what I encourage you to do. Thank you very much. Is Dr. Tejada here? Yeah, there you go, come on. I have a report from the Carlton's Music Business Program. We met last week, or so, a couple of weeks ago, out at the Melody Mountain Ranch and talked about the music program, and I invited him to come talk to the city council and advertise his program. It's a
Yeah.
unique approach.
Hi, thank you for the opportunity of speaking here. I have a program that's kind of new within Tarleton, and one of the things that Tarleton is kind of, most universities, we have a vested interest in partnering with the community as often and as frequently as possible to make both our lives better, both the university and make the city communities better. One of the things that Tarleton now does is they shifted some of the resources away from the traditional way that we do music or approach music to having more of a community, a music or a program that actually serves the values of the communities and the realities of the community. Because way too often the university music programs, they've all been based around art music or making music as an art form. Now that, although it's great in producing great musicians, it doesn't necessarily ever connect with the community and the community members, the values of the community members that are involved. So we now have a music business program, and my main purpose there is to make my students at least culturally aware that if you want to have a sustainable living in the music industry, you can't just play great music. You have to actually be able to speak to the values and the beliefs of the community that you're speaking with. So, so with that, we're kind of a natural partner for the initiative that some of us are taking here of making Stephenville a music-friendly community, as it's sponsored by the governor's office and the Texas Music Office. Now, there are a lot of stumbling blocks when people think about careers in music, right? I know we've all heard them. First of all, I get these all the time. You can't make a living in music, right? It's because they've only seen two versions. Most people only understand two versions of that reality. You got the household name that everybody knows. I mean, I've had the pleasure of touring with Kid Rock and with Daughtry. Those are people that everybody knows. And yeah, everybody in that team makes a sustainable living. And the other version of that is, yeah, my Uncle Bob, he plays once a month down at the bar and they give him, I think, $50 and let him buy beers. But you could see how, as a parent, most people would be, well, yeah, this is very unlikely, this is more truthful. But no, neither one of them is a true reflection of what goes on in the music industry. According to the governor's office, here in Texas, we have 90,000 full-time permanent employees within the music industry. And those 90,000 jobs bring approximately $3.6 billion of annual earning to the people directly involved, and also bring another $8.5 billion in peripheral resources and earnings to the communities to Texas. So, yeah, so as you can see, there's a lot of people and a lot of money to be made in this industry. And it really is one of the stumbling blocks that I get is you can't make a living. Not true at all. And at Tarleton, currently the program, we became an Avid Pro Tools learning partner, which is, if you know anything about music in the music industry, Avid Pro Tool is a software that all of the major recordings are recorded off of. So now we have an engineering ability to produce engineers and certified engineers. Our recording studio will be fully functional by the end of this month. We plan to have possibly an open house in the middle of next month to let the community know that the studio is now open for use for students and for community members. And it's a modern digital recording studio. You can't think of a way that have you ever seen any of those rock albums where it's a big board that's this big? No, that's not my version of the music business. My version of music business is what could you afford at your house and be able to make a good recording. And with that, that's the kind of recording studio that we have at our university. We also teach a music publishing class, which teaches the students how, and yeah, I get these people. My first year, I had some members of the Cottonwood Crows who actually had 500,000 spins on Spotify, right? They don't have a publishing entity. So every time that music is played, they should be getting paid. But you know what happens if you don't have a publishing entity or you don't know how to set it up? All of that money just goes away. It just doesn't exist. So I teach them how to set up their publishing entities. I teach them how to be self-management. I also teach them about digital music and beat production. And we also have a student organization that allows the students to not only learn from me, from the class, but it actually also produces all the recordings for the other students. They will be in charge of the recording studio once it gets up and running. They're also going to be in charge of the musical ensembles that go out into the city. I have a Latin band and its whole thing was to be a musical ambassador to the Hispanic community, and to be able to get paid, and they'll be managed through Studio T, which is the student organization. And we also have publishing registration. So all of my students are able to start their own publishing businesses or entities so that they can start actually making money from music that is generated. On top of learning how it is that really music is not about how good a song sounds. Music is really about how well I use the tool of music to convey the values that I believe in deeply to an audience that also believes and has those values and beliefs, and how I could get them to share values and beliefs to support a career in music. So that's kind of what I'm doing there at Tarleton, and I need people to get the word out. It's a new program, and people just don't know it exists. And yes, and a lot of the oh, you can't make a living in that. Yeah, in order to teach here, my oldest daughter joined the Army 3 years ago. And after 30 years of being a road musician, I realized I didn't know her. So my priorities shifted. And now I'm teaching, and I actually took a 60% reduction in pay to teach people what I know how to do. So is it a viable career? It was for me and everybody around me that we could comfortably have sustainable careers doing what we love. And you know, the truth is, what I tell my students is, for 30 years, I now work. I now work at the university. But for 30 years, I wake up and I go to play. And that is an awesome experience to have in life. And I encourage people that are talented and that have that wired, their DNA is wired to perform or to get their values out in front of people, to come check us out. So with that, any questions?
You have any questions for Dr. Tejada? We appreciate you coming tonight. When we spoke, we met at the music-friendly community meeting we had at Melody Mountain Ranch. And we were visiting, and he said we need to get the word out. And I said, well, there's a lot of people that watch us online tonight. Have been an opportunity to do that as well. And with Julie's leadership, we're going to become one of the few music-friendly cities. Stephenville is in the state of Texas. We appreciate you coming tonight. Get the word out for him so he can have some more students sign up.
All right. Yes.
Thank you very much, sir. Cross Timbers Fine Arts Council, we have a representative tonight to talk about the budget. Stacy, do we vote on this one tonight to approve this or just report?
All right. Well, thank you for having me tonight. I'd just like to take a moment to introduce myself officially as the Executive Director for the Cross Timbers Fine Arts Council. I started in June after our longtime director took some other position. And so I'm very blessed to be here and to be presenting our report to you guys tonight. For those of you who may not be super familiar with the Cross Timbers Fine Arts Council, if you're watching at home or in the audience tonight, we are a 501c3. We were founded in 1980. And we have the goal of enriching the artistic environment of our area and to make cultural activities accessible to all citizens. And we serve an 8-county area, so it's not just Stephenville and Erath County, but we're really looking to reach out to surrounding areas as well. We are funded through the hotel motel tax as well as corporate and individual memberships and fundraisers that we hold throughout the year. I'd like to take a few minutes to look back over the summer activities that we had just to kind of show you what we do. We hosted an art camp, and actually the first day of art camp this year was my first day in the office. And so that was a lot of fun because we hosted nearly 100 children for that week of art-focused activities. 68 of those were from the local Stephenville area, but 27 came from zip codes outside of the Stephenville area. And a lot of those were grandkids who came to stay with grandparents, and this was a great activity for them to do while they were here. We've also hosted a lot of gallery events over the summer. These include artist receptions in one of our 4 galleries, as well as gallery visitors, people coming just to see the artwork, and classes. We had a total of 213 visitors for the summer, with 101 of those from Stephenville and 112 of those coming from outside of our area. As we look forward, moving into my first year as a director, as well as the upcoming calendar year, we have a brand new event coming up at the end of this month. You maybe have heard of it. We've been kind of pushing this through the radio and on Facebook. It's the Urban Cowboy Night happening at Birdsong Amphitheater as part of Rodeo Heritage Week on Thursday, September 27th. That's a free concert featuring Johnny Lee and the Urban Cowboy Band. Now, believe it or not, I am old enough to remember this movie. And I think a few of you might be too. And it's a super fun event, and we really do encourage everybody to come out. More than 700 have indicated on Facebook that they are interested in coming to this event. So I think it's going to be a ton of fun. We're going to have a Bud and Sissy look-alike contest. We're going to have classic cars. Just come out, hang out, have a great time. We've already got hotel rooms confirmed, about 12 of those for that event. So if you're looking to come and stay in the area, you might not wait to get your hotel room. We've also got coming this fall Ballet Austin on October the 30th. Again, this is another free event for over 1,400 local elementary school children. And we have 22 hotel rooms confirmed for that already. We'll continue to feature local talent in each of our 4 galleries as part of the Art in Public Places program, which is done in partnership with the city. We've added watercolor classes to our in-studio gallery, children's art classes, and an eccentrics class, which is, I have a really terrible way of explaining it. The instructor does a much better job, but it's kind of like yoga among art. And it's really cool just to kind of come and work out among the artwork. And we're also going to keep doing our monthly Paint the Town events. We've also just renewed our contract with certified music therapist Kathy Canal, who brings the arts to adults and children who face unique learning challenges. And of course, we have our annual fundraiser coming up again on March 23rd, 2019, which is Ragin' Cajun. So if you're into crawfish and live music, that's another great event to get on your calendar. Looking into the way distant future, or maybe not even so way distant future, and we have made a lot of good future plans. In August, as a matter of fact, we had a board workshop and visioning session where we identified several key areas we'd like to focus on as we move forward. Among the many top key areas are outreach and facility development. Under outreach, as I mentioned, we do serve 8 rural counties, and we're looking to expand our partnership in those areas, which include Erath, Bosque, Comanche, Eastland, Hamilton, Hood, Palapino, and Somerville. And to achieve that outreach, we've started by working here locally, contacting our local hotels, and then we're going to move out to contact the hotels in each of those areas. And what we're doing is we're asking them to keep our brochures and notices of our events in their lobbies and lists of our galleries, all of 4 of which are here in Stephenville. We've also reached out to incoming Tarleton students so that their parents can't say there's nothing to do in Stephenville, because that's probably my biggest pet peeve when I hear somebody and they say, there's nothing to do here. I'm like, are you kidding? I'm never home, ever. I think I maybe sleep there every once in a while. And we've also looked into placing our materials into the official Texas Visitor Centers at key state crossing. These are those big, nice rest areas if you've ever gone to Oklahoma or any of our neighboring states that are just this side of the Texas border. They have big displays of things to do, and we'd like to get included in that. In 2020, we're also going to be hosting a national exhibit, and so we're researching billboard options for that, so be looking for more information on that to come. Under our facility development, most of you are aware that we have a gallery here in Stephenville on River North Boulevard near the Stephenville Medical Surgical Clinic. And the storm a few years ago, like many other people in town, did take a toll on our building. And so we've replaced a damaged roof and some equipment, air conditioner equipment on the roof. And so now that we've got that done, we're actively pursuing plans to update and expand our main gallery there. So by improving the lighting and the current use of space, our goal is to bring in larger exhibits and juried shows and to grow in other artistic avenues, such as providing a space for voice or music lessons, pottery classes, photography, writers' workshops, and more. One of the bigger dreams we have for our space there on River North Boulevard is to develop an outdoor gallery. This is not only to create a truly accessible and interactive art space, but could also incorporate outdoor classroom space as well. For future generations, looking even farther down the road, we'd like to grow in a way where we are financially able to offer a scholarship program for students who are interested in pursuing artistic endeavors. And perhaps we could partner with Tarleton on some of their programs and even offer a scholarship to their students there. Personally, I'm also excited to be a part of the Texas Music Friendly Committee that is getting started here, and to have the opportunity to work alongside a variety of community partners to make sure that our community does provide artistic avenues for all future generations. Thank you very much for your time and your support over the years. I'm looking forward to growing and learning at Cross Timbers Fine Arts Council and being a good steward of the community and the trust that you guys have placed in us over the years. I'd be happy to answer any questions anybody
Anyone have any
has.
questions?
I just have one, Mayor.
Yes, sir.
Sure.
Whitney, I know you guys do a great job of serving, what, you said 8 counties, correct?
Yes, sir.
And I know we have forever, I mean, as long as I can remember, of course, through hotel motel funds have given money. Have we thought about soliciting these other government agencies for any type, or entities for any type of funding for their hotel motel tax?
Well, if you mean by we, as far as the council itself, that has recently been part of the discussions. Now, of course, we want to be good partners with all of the communities that we're in. And so part of our outreach program is to develop working relationships in those areas before we approach them for money. If they don't even know we exist, it's going to be a real hard sell for anybody to walk in and say, you know, can we have a check? And we are working on growing our value, not only to our partners here in Erath County, but in all of our 8 counties, so that we can look into those avenues.
And if I recall, I think Somerville County, y'all had events there before. I think we used the facilities there, and of course, I know they've participated with you guys previously in some events.
Yes.
So I guess we can have more events in these 8 counties, and we think that'll open the doors to some funding, I guess.
I think so, yes.
Okay. That'd be great. I think that's an untapped resource.
Good. Any other questions? I'm sure that there was a large loss when someone hired away your predecessor, but I want you to know that my wife wanted me to say that there's also a big loss where you left as well as kind of a stealing down the line. So you did a
I
great job
appreciate
also
that.
at the
Thank
Erath
you.
County Senior Citizens Corporation. Thank you very
Thank
much. Anything else? Thank you for your report.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to item number 6, which is consider approval of an ordinance number 2018-034, adopting a fee schedule. Who's going to make the you making the presentation? Jen? Oh, Monica? Everybody's pointing down the line. That's why you sit at the end of the row.
Yeah, Jen, do it.
I thought you said you had a report tonight.
Mayor, Council, when we went through our budget workshops, one of the things that I presented in the documentation were some adjustments to our fee schedule. What you have in front of you in the ordinance itself is what it would be after you adopted it. And if you'd like, I can go over the changes one by one. I don't know how many of y'all remembered what was in the budget.
What's the preference of the council? You want to go over the details again? We went over it in council. Anybody have that desire?
Well, there were just a couple, so it'd probably be
Okay.
business to let everybody
Yeah.
know.
All right.
There's not a whole lot. So the first thing that we're requesting to change is our credit card processing fee. It has been $2.50 per transaction. Right now, the goal is to be a break even on the fee that you take in and then what the credit card companies charge you for processing. And we are actually losing money between our online and what we have the terminals here. So we were wanting to change it. We kind of worked with the numbers a bit, and 2% we're hoping is the magic break-even point. So people that have a water bill that'd be less than $100 would actually save a little bit of money. People that have water bills that are higher than that would actually cost them a little bit more money. This also opens us up. We do not accept credit card transactions like on our building and permits and stuff because they get so expensive and we would lose so much money. This would open it up that we could start accepting credit cards on some of those type of larger transactions as well. The next item is at the Splashville swimming pool. The daily admission is being requested to increase 50 cents. It was my understanding that this was a plan over a period of time to increase the rate, and so it's currently at $5.50 and it would change to $6 per person. In the community center, the daily rental is just a clarification from it did used to say 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. and now it's just 8 hours, any given 8 hours. And then they added a partial day for 4 hours at half the rate of $75. And then the holiday rental, of course there would be no rentals on Christmas Day or Thanksgiving Day, but because it is a holiday, to increase that rate a little bit higher to $200. We've asked for, under our planning services, to include a new subdivision waiver request, and it's $200 per item. So if somebody wanted to come in and request 5 different waivers, it would be $200 for each one of those. And then in the water fund, when we were back last year talking about our water rates, plus when we worked on the east side sewer, we were talking about the different plan that originally happened and what we needed to do for the coming up. And so this last rate increase was 3 out of 4 of the rate increases on the water. So what I've put in, although this does not take effect until April 1st, that would be the normal time, is to increase the rate that is currently at $4.35 to $4.55 on the per 1,000 gallon charge on water. For the sewer, that we did a 1.20 cent, and we talked that we would need 3 more to, follow through with our plans of what had originally been talked about several years ago. So we put that in as well, from the current rate of $3.70 and on October 1st going up to $3.90. I'm going to backtrack just a little bit. A few other changes that were requested was for outside the city limits contractor construction water. We currently have an outside city limits rate of 115% of our rates, but this would be for contractors for construction, that would be 200% of our rates. And then one of the things that we requested, as for our deposits, we do have a statement in there, 1/3 to be paid in cash at the time of making application, and the remaining 2/3 to be billed on the first 2 months billing. We've asked to take that out. Number one, I don't think since I've been here we've even seen anybody use that. And number two, it kind of defeats the whole purpose of having a deposit if you're going to bill them later for it. So we've requested to remove that. For our commercial connections, we've added for the service deposit, it's required should be equal to an estimate of the cost of 60 days of utility service. We've changed that to 75 days. The minimum is still the 500, mainly because by the time when you get your bill, that's 30 days of service, and then you get time to pay it, and we send you disconnect notices. By the time we actually get you disconnected in the final bill, it's about 75 days worth of usage roughly that happens, and so it's try to cover us. And then in the item C, we also changed that to 2.5 months as far as if the deposit required is not found to be adequate, that we can do 2.5 months of the current calculation. I also added another stipulation for commercial connections. Currently, for our residential customers, if they want to provide a letter of credit showing that they've only been past due like 2 out of 12 months, the previous 12 months, they don't have to put up their deposit. We waive it, and we have allotted that to some of our commercial customers, but I think that that's something that we ought to do. If you're a good commercial customer that's been with us, or you've been in another community and you're coming in, and it's the same company name, then we ought to let you do that as well. Also in the water department, we've added a new fire hydrant meter set fee. Currently, we do not charge, and it's $25 to recoup our cost of having to go out there and set a meter, attach it to a fire hydrant. That you see that a lot in construction. What they'll do is they'll attach to a fire hydrant, and that's where they get their water from. A fire hydrant meter relocation fee. They work a lot of times on road construction. If they're working in one area and then they move to another, and they just want to keep the same account, we take the fire hydrant and we move it somewhere else, and that's to charge for our labor and to do that. And then a meter reset fee, and that is if a customer is called and asks us to pull a meter, and then they change their mind however long later and they want us to go back and put it back in, we'll be glad to do that, but we think we should charge a fee for the work that involves to do that. A tampering fee, we've set that at $50 plus repair. Frequently we have a situation where the customer decides to go in and get into that meter. This is not unusual. Most utilities do not want you messing with their meters, and we especially don't, especially with the electronic devices. Those wires, you know, I won't say they're delicate, but it is not uncommon when somebody opens that up, they break the wires, and then the electronic piece of it no longer works. So to give us a little bit of leeway, we can charge $50 for them tampering with that, because we tell people to stay out on the meters. Call us, we'll be glad to go take care of that for them. And then the cost of repairs if we have to replace any of the equipment that they broke when they got in there. We've just clarified on our water tap charges that street repair is not included. That's been there, but we've added a place where they can see where that would, where that street cost would be. And then in our sewer fund, we do have some services that we allow them to connect into our sewer, but they do not have water service. So what has been our practice is that they get charged the minimum, or the maximum actually, of 12,000 gallons. And then just to put that in there so it's clear to people that are connecting that only have sewer only, because we have no way to measure the amount of sewer coming out, that they just get charged the maximum that any other residential customer would be, is 12,000 gallons. Also for the sewer tap charges, has always stated that it does not include the street repair. We've just indicated where they can find the street services in our fee schedule. For our sanitation services, we just changed the name of the company because it used to be Progressive, and now it's Waste Connections. And that's pretty much it. Does anybody have any questions on the changes?
Any questions? I have one. I'm sure the other council members have had the same emails and phone calls I've had about the surcharge. And so staff, I've been telling people that staff is going to bring back a recommendation to us about the surcharge.
Yes, sir. Monica and I actually had this conversation today.
Okay.
Our current billing system does not separate the surcharge from the regular charge. However, we will be working with Encode over the non-surcharge time to get that part of the program written. And hopefully next year we'll be able to separate the surcharge from the regular water charges.
We would like to see where we can get instead of a summary bill that just has the total water fee, that we can get it broken down. I know that we've also talked about different rate structures. One of the things that, I don't remember if y'all remember from, I guess it was last week or the week before, in our infrastructure plans, is part of that is a rate structure on the water and sewer.
So I would hope that before these rates hit again next summer in May, because we're about to the end of it.
Right.
September's the last.
September's last.
But these surcharges, I believe a lot of people in the community don't even know they're paying them because it's in very fine print at the bottom of the water bill. And in fact, last year's water bills actually broke down what the surcharges were. But this year, the water bill just says there's a surcharge. So if you're trying to figure, I had somebody copy it and send it to me. So they had a 2017 bill and a 2018. But I would like some alternatives to look at for that money, because I stopped yesterday at a house and said, your yard's dead, why aren't you watering? And you know what their answer was, don't you?
It's too expensive.
It's too expensive, I can't water my yard. And we have groups like Keep Stigmaville Beautiful, and we're not encouraging our people to keep their yards beautiful because they can't afford it. So we need to look at, staff's supposed to bring us some alternatives for that money, so I hope we get to that before next May.
We did look at some of that, and one of the, just some simple solutions that we looked at was you can increase the monthly minimum fee for every customer across the board at $8. I don't know if that's necessarily fair that you want to tell the person that's on Social Security that they got to pay $8 extra a month.
But I'm on Social Security, and that beats a $300 to $800 water bill in the summer, an $8 surcharge.
It does for the person that's paying that, but for the person that's paying well less than that, I don't know that it does. So that was one option.
But we need to look at that.
And
I'd
then,
recommend y'all bring some suggestions to us. Alan,
right,
y'all do that?
the other option is to just increase your per 1,000 gallon charge, and so we'd like to actually see when the master plan, because we'll also be able to get out our capital, what all we're going to need, to see how that all impacts, and I think we'll get a better idea of how we can restructure some of that.
Any other question for Monica? Hearing none, do I have a motion to adopt the ordinance?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve ordinance number 2018-0-34, establishing the fees for services.
Mark makes a motion. Do I hear a second? Second by Alan Nix. Any other questions, comments? Proceed to vote. All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Same sign opposed.
Nay.
We have one vote in opposition. Motion passes. Okay, next item is number 7, which is approval of the ordinance 2018-035, is adopting city budget for the year 2018-19. Monica?
Well, we had our hearing on our budget, and then we took from the budget workshops that we had, and I put in the information, the items that came out of that workshop that the council would like to add. So I can just quickly go over our overall fund. The anticipated revenues for the fiscal year would be 25.2 million total. We're doing transfers between the funds of 1.6 million, and the total expenditures would be 43.3. We would be dipping into reserves of about 18 million, and the reason why that number is so high is because the revenues from the East Side Sewer hit this year, and of course there's no way we're going to spend that whole 17 million this fiscal year, so we're carrying that over and we'll spend it. And then there were some other things, those infrastructure plans and stuff were carried over as well, to the tune of about almost $1 million for a few other things. So our anticipated estimated cash balance would be about 12.8 million. We do have operational reserves of 25% of 4.9. We did that in our general fund and all of our enterprise funds. And then we've restricted $2 million for our debt service. And then, of course, all of your special revenue funds, the tourism, we've restricted that money. What we have in our capital projects funds is restricted to capital projects funds. Child safety, court technology, public safety are all restricted. In our airport improvement fund, we did increase. We had, I think, a little over 800,000 restricted there. We increased that to $1 million. We anticipate that to be a $10 million project, and 10% of that is ours. So we've increased that up to $1 million to reserve for when that actually comes to fruition. We will transfer that to our airport fund. We've, for our grant matching, we have reserved 150,000 in our general fund, and then we've also, coming out of the budget workshop, have restricted 150,000 for the recreation hall AC for whenever we get the engineering and design on that. In our storm water fund, we've restricted 500,238 is for the debt service on that. So our total estimated unrestricted cash balance would be about three and a half million if everything plays out the way we've budgeted to, which I don't have a crystal ball, so I can't tell you for sure it's going to happen. I will say in this budget, our property tax revenue is set at the 48 cents. And then we did go up a little bit on our sales tax because we've done well this year, and we anticipate that to continue on. Are there any questions or any specific
Questions for Monica?
funds you'd like to talk about?
Yes, sir.
I'm curious, how many new personnel did we include in this budget?
There was actually only one totally new position, and that was added for the police department, for the school resource officer, K-9 unit that the school has requested, and that ended up being a wash because we increased the revenue coming in from the school system. We did take two positions that were part-time. One is an IT position. One of them was a records position in the police department, and made them full-time. But otherwise than that, there was no new positions.
So except for those two part-time becoming full-time, and the school resource officer, which will be funded 100% by the school district, we did nothing to address the shortfall of city employees in any departments.
That is correct.
Any other questions? Hearing none. This requires a roll call vote, so does anybody have a motion they'd like to make tonight?
Actually, I do have one
Okay.
question. If we approve this budget, does that also roll in the CETA budget into that approval, or do we need to pull that out separately?
The CETA budget is not in this one.
Not in this
I've already taken it out. I also removed in the document that I submitted anything that had to do with the tax rate, because I didn't want our citizens to get confused that if you voted on this, that it was also voting on that they're two separate items. So CETA's not in here.
Thank you.
Other questions? Hearing none, do I hear a motion to approve the ordinance?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve ordinance number 2018-0-35 as presented.
Mark? And Mark makes the motion and Brady makes the second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor? It says to be a roll call vote, is that right? Okay, place one,
Aye.
place two,
Aye.
place four,
Aye.
place five.
Aye.
6,
No.
7,
Aye.
8.
Aye.
We have 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 ayes and 1 no. Motion passes. We've approved the budget for 2018-19. Next item is approval of an ordinance for the adopting a 2018 tax rate. Monica?
So we posted our maximum proposed tax rate at the .5091 per 100. We did our 2 hearings that was required. And so now it's time for the council to determine what you would like. You can propose any rate up to the .5091, nothing above. And again, what we had in our budget was 48 cents. Are there any questions?
Council have any questions? Hearing none, do I have a motion?
Mayor, I'm going to recommend that we set the current tax rate, that we reduce that rate from 48 cents a hundred to 47 cents a hundred, which I had mentioned to the council my interest probably a couple of weeks ago.
Red Harrison makes a motion that we reduce the rate, the tax rate from 48 to 47 cents.
Okay, that motion has to be stated a very specific way, and I
Okay.
think there's language right there.
I apologize for
That's
that.
okay.
I move the property tax rate be decreased by the adoption of a tax rate of 47 cents, which is effectively a 2.3 2.3% increase in the tax rate.
Is that,
That would be a correct statement, because
Okay.
our effective tax rate is .4593.
I understand.
Okay.
But I'm looking at it as reducing it, and I'm reading it as I think we get into this every year, don't we? So, anyway. Is that acceptable? Is that
I
acceptable?
believe so, yes, thank you.
That's my motion.
we have, Rich made a motion and Sherry seconds it. Any other discussion?
I have a quick comment, I guess.
Yes, sir.
Mayor. Annually, stuff every year we talk about taxes and everything, and I think every person up here on this council is cautious of the tax rate. There's no doubt about it, and the effect it has on our citizens. And there's no doubt also 1 cent is gracious to the citizens. It shows good faith on behalf of the citizens, but I'm not for sure if it's really doing anybody much good out there. And I think Rhett just kind of hit on it a second ago. I mean, at the end of the day, he read a motion off that's still afforded for a 2.33% increase of tax rate, even reducing it down to 47 cents. So I'd make a motion that we amend the main motion by striking out 47 and inserting 45,930, which was effectively a 0% increase in the tax rate.
Say that again? You're
45.39 or
45.39.
93.
93. Okay, we have a motion, we have a amendment to the motion. Do we have a second? Hearing none, the motion, amendment fails. Any other discussion?
I'd like to ask a
Yes, sir.
question. So where's the offset, Rhett, for the $120,000? What's your proposed offset?
Well, I'll tell you what, without getting into any tremendous specifics, what I'd like to do is go back. We've adopted the budget. What I'd like to do is go back with city administration and the departments. And just because we have a certain amount of expenditures that we've approved does not mean that we have to utilize all those expenditures. And I would like for staff to look at coming up with additional $127,000. Isn't that correct? Somewhere thereabout?
Somewhere about there.
Because it is I do not want to disrupt the departments any more than what I have to. If that is not the case, if the other option to me would be to go in and maybe make a subcommittee comprising of 2 or 3 different people to help make recommendations on what those changes should be.
Fair enough. Alan, what's the potential impact for the revenue cap if we reduce the tax rate, if that were to pass?
I guess the best way to answer your question, Mark, is that if the 2.5% revenue cap had been in place during the last legislative session, it would have negatively impacted our budget by approximately $5 million. Moving forward, not knowing what the legislature will come up with, I really don't know how to answer your question. I believe once, if we reduce the tax rate, which please understand that is, if it's your prerogative, we'll certainly make it work. I think some pretty significant damage will be done if a very low revenue cap is passed by the legislature. Again, the governor has recommended 2.5. I believe Senator Betancourt, correct me if I'm wrong, Mayor, is going to propose a 4% maximum,
That's what I hear.
which is far below the 6% that was discussed last session. So it's, as cities cut taxes, it's going to be more difficult to raise taxes to answer the needs for additional streets, additional police, additional firefighters, additional equipment that's going to be necessary over the upcoming years. Again, I can't tell you that the sky is falling, but I can't tell you that it's not falling. It is going to be a very difficult time to be a city in Texas. The governor has based his 2.5% on the state of Massachusetts. However, he has failed to recognize, or the state of Texas has failed to recognize, that the state of Massachusetts supplies its cities with approximately 5 to 10% of their annual budgets from state funds. So that's the reason they capped theirs at 2.5%. I can assure this council and the citizens present and the citizens watching this that we as staff during my tenure here will do the absolute best to make our city run as efficiently and as functionally possible as we can. I hope that answered your question in some manner.
It did. And I guess, Rhett, I'll just say that's my concern with lowering the tax rate this year. Because we don't know.
Because it affects us next year.
Right.
Forever.
Because it becomes harder and harder to keep pace. That would be my only concern.
That's kind of a good thing though, isn't it? It's harder and harder to raise taxes. That's a really good thing.
It's harder to keep pace with the growing expenses, is what he said.
That helps keep the costs down. Keeping the money supply down keeps the costs down.
Brandon,
My concern is, I think they're definitely, I don't like property tax as much as anybody. I don't think cities are, especially this one, are the biggest violators of that. This is going to literally save a $150,000 household $1.25 a month. $1.25 a month, $15 a year is what we're proposing. Does this budget address anything with Longstreet? It does not. Does this budget address anything with Harbin? It does not. Does this budget have anything to do with the senior center? It does not. Does this budget have anything for Spring Meadow and our citizens that flood every time it rains? It does not. The problem with property tax is not in Stephenville, Texas. In our judgment, if we keep it where we're at $150,000, $150,000 of capital improvement, we will have less, or right around $800,000 in the bank in 4 years. And that's not addressing any of those projects, and we have many more that are in there. I think this council's done an excellent job at cutting the budget and making good decisions, but I think it is extremely short-sighted to, for lack of a better word, for political gain, to try to cut a tax rate for 1 cent that is $1.25 a month when we have the issues that we have. And that's all I have to say. And I agree, I'm not sitting here raising it. School finance reform needs to be happening at a legislative level, and we need to be working on that. I agree. But it's not Stephenville, Texas, and we've got to look out for what's best for Stephenville, Texas, and our citizens.
For one thing, we're failing to consider the fact that you can also grow taxes through sales tax increases by all the new new building, new retail, that sort of thing that does grow taxes. In addition to which, this is the argument that prompted me to run, was it's only $1.25 a month. It's the cost of a coffee. That comes from people who have plenty of money. We have one of the lowest incomes in the state here, and I know people who worry and put $1 in their tank of gas at a time so they can get to work and back. So it's extremely tone deaf, I think, to say when our town has these issues that it's only $125,000.
$125.
No, it's only but the total of it is $125,000. That's a lot of money, and it is it's important to remember that businesses don't operate this way. Government is different, and I agree with that, but the fact that the appraisals have gone up the last 2 years by 10% each year. I have properties here that have gone up twice, 10%. And the original tax increase at the state keeping it at 48%, or 48 cents, is 4.51% increase over last year. So we aren't, and we, because of the truth in taxation, aren't decreasing the taxes. We are increasing the taxes by a rate of 2.33% over the prior year.
And inflation in
So-
July was 2.9%. So,
Yes, and people felt it in their pocketbook. The taxpayers felt it in their pocketbook, and this is all of a piece, and this is always the argument of government, and it's an improper argument, in my opinion, and that, and like I said, it is the 1% increase, or 1 cent increase was what prompted me to run, and I have thought at that, since then, that is, and I continue to feel that's a problem, that government views this, or that people who are for tax increases view this as just this small amount of money that comes from people's pocketbooks, so.
Any other
that would be my
questions,
remarks.
comments? Yes, sir. Did you have a question?
But yeah, I'm gonna start by saying, as I have been challenged before for political gain, and I have to assume that that's directed at me. But well, if not, I take it as that. And what I'm going to tell you is, and I'm gonna get this out of the way because I didn't have the opportunity last time that this happened, is that I don't go out and shake hands with people. I don't kiss babies. I don't run on a popularity contest. And it's not always the most popular guy that gets the job done. But what I do is I run on a platform. And number one on that platform is tax reduction. And so I have to assume that as a reason that I am elected as people's representative, that somewhere in that process that they assume that that's important. And it is not only a promise, it is a covenant that I have with my constituents. So, you know, I really don't appreciate that. And I'm sure it's not because you or no one else in this room knows what my political ambitions are, because I'm not gonna tell you. But the fact of the matter is, number one, is that, you know, we're sitting here talking about, you know, each individual household. I don't know that that accounts for, you know, all the small business owners that are out there that might have $1 million. It's very easy to get $1 million worth of property assets. And really what we're not doing is we're talking about a cumulative effect. I'm not asking to go out here and cut 10 cents out of the budget because I know that that would be detrimental. What I have done, and anybody that's followed me, and this is what I believe in, and if you don't want to vote this way, it's perfectly fine. But you take a cent here, you take a cent there, you take a half cent, you take 2 cents, and the cumulative effect starts to add up, especially whenever it's relative to what the appraisal district has been doing to everyone. And the people, to be honest with you, we've got the money from the appraisal district that we can fund this whole thing. I mean, we got what, $338,000 additional money based on appraisal district? Isn't that correct? Somewhere there.
That is correct,
Okay.
as compared to last
I
year.
mean, it funds the tax increase. And when you have the American people, you have the people in Stephenville, Texas, and I'll tell you something else. I have had more complaints out of anything over the appraisal district and the appraisals that they come out with, and I don't have anything to do with that. None of us have anything to do with it.
absolutely we don't.
Yeah.
It's a
So,
problem.
I mean, it's a factor, and especially you sit here and there's another council member that said that, you know, it's an empty gesture, I believe is what it is. But it's not, because like I said, it's that cumulative effect. It's trying to get that cumulative effect. And then you've got the county. What's the county doing? We're not talking about a 1 cent reduction. We're talking about a 4.5 cent reduction over the last 2 years. And that's substantial, especially if we can keep that going. And that's the reason for it, because the alternative is to always go up and up and up. Oh, government, if we only had more money, we could have such a great utopia. And that's what we do as government, is that we We perform services for people that's hard for them to perform for themselves. That's exactly what we do. But the problem is that we try to do everything for everybody. And I just don't know that's realistic. And I think we all know that there's more money in this budget. There's a difference between what is necessary and something else. And that's kind of what we have. We can go farther in this budget. And if we can't do it, I bragged on the city administration. I bragged on the city staff because the efforts that they made over the last couple of years, we're changing things. And if you ask Alan Barnes, Alan will tell you, we're probably doing things that other governments you typically don't see as far as finance. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And I love that fact. Everybody's catching on to it. But we've got to do more. We've got to do more, and I'm just gonna leave it at that. I stand on voting it's right at 47 cents.
Alan, question, if we don't approve the tax rate at 48, we've already approved the budget, do we have to go back and unapprove the budget, or we have, how do we do? And I'll say that's a concern I have, because the state of Texas does it right. They determine their revenue, then they do a budget. And unfortunately, according to you, that the process is we have to do it the way that we're doing it in.
We have to do it in a specific order as assigned by the state of Texas, which actually is in reverse order of what they do.
That's exactly right. So, they know what the revenue is, and then they determine a budget based on the revenue, but we don't get to do that.
What we will do is the recommendations that we make will come back in the form of a budget amendment, I believe is correct.
Yes, I would anticipate that after the year starts, we'll come back with a budget amendment to change the property tax revenue to whatever it would be with the different rate that might be approved. And that way, we're not looking at all year, showing that we're under it. It'll, when we're trying to do our monthly budget review, it's a good comparison, apples to apples.
I think that's important too, because we have money for a rec hall center that without forward planning, I don't understand. So there's things that I would want to adjust about that, so.
Okay. Any other comments, questions? Hearing none, we have on the floor a motion to reduce the tax, or to, not reduce, but to adopt a tax rate of 47 cents per hundred. Any other comments, questions? We'll proceed to a roll call vote. Place one,
No.
place two,
Aye.
place four,
No.
place five,
Aye.
place six,
No.
7,
Aye.
8.
No.
So what's the count, Stacy?
3 ayes, 4 noes.
4 noes. Okay, and the vote otherwise would just cause a tie, which means you have to vote all over again. So we're gonna go, so we don't have a tax rate as of yet. Do we have another motion?
I move that the property tax rate be increased by the adoption of a tax rate of 0.4800, which is effectively a 4.5% increase in the tax rate.
Second.
Brandon makes a motion, we adopt the tax rate as stated earlier for 48 cents, which is in the budget, and Mark seconds that. Comments? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. Roll call vote. Place one,
Aye.
place two,
No.
place four,
No.
place five,
No.
place six,
Yes.
place seven,
No.
place 8.
Yes.
What's the count, Stacy?
Are we offering an option?
We're back at loggerhead.
Can we compromise at 47 and a half?
I think that sounds reasonable.
Okay, we have, that motion fails. Do we hear another motion?
We don't have a write-up, Stacy.
I've got one who wants to make the motion.
I can make the motion if you hand it to me.
You have a statement?
She does have a statement for us. Is that acceptable, Rose?
47 failed, 48 failed, so I think it's on 47 back.
I move that the property tax rate be increased by the adoption of a tax rate of 0.475, which is effectively a 3.42% increase in the tax rate.
Carl makes a motion, we reduce the rate to, we adopt a tax rate of 47.5 cents per hundred. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Mark makes a second, to the motion. Any more discussion? Proceed to vote. Place one,
Aye.
place two,
Aye.
place four,
Ah.
Place 5?
Aye.
Place 6?
No.
Place 7?
Aye.
Place 8?
No.
We have, that's 5-2, is that right? Yeah, we have adopted a tax rate of 0.475 cents per hundred. Thank you very much. Anything else to go from there? You have this look on your face like, yeah, like you want to say something about that.
Thank you for that half cent.
Thank you. Okay, we're gonna move on to item number 9, approval. I guess we'll have a report on the airport development agreement.
All right, good evening. Tonight I bring to you an amendment to the Prime Development hangar at the airport. They are requesting to submit for ramp grant reimbursement for their public improvements, which are their parking lot and their apron.
You have any questions?
Yes, sir.
Mark, you were about to say something. Go ahead. We'll come down to place 7 in a minute.
Oh, no, age before
Oh,
beauty.
eight.
every time.
That's getting deep, guys. Okay, we'll do that first.
That would be you, Ben.
Yeah, I know, but I'm not gonna make a comment. 6 months ago.
I want to make sure that I understand this. This is a grant,
Mhm.
50/50 match,
Yes, sir.
but the contractor in this case will be hired and paid for by the person Prime Buildings that we're leasing to. Is that correct?
Yes, so Prime Buildings will actually front the money and then they will be reimbursed if they are approved through the ramp grant program.
And if they are not approved, then the entire expense falls on them.
Yes, sir.
The city is
Not obligated.
not obligated to do any more than make the application for them.
Yes, sir.
Do we have something in their contract that will compensate the city for the time involved in making the application for them?
There is not currently any additional funding requested for that.
Should there be?
I wouldn't recommend it.
Okay.
Mark?
So Gina, one time there was a lot of talk about this hangar and the electrical component and having to move the underground utilities for the Pappies and
Mhm.
whatever else is out there at the airport. Is that all contained within this agreement?
Yes, that has all been corrected and approved.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? You hear a motion?
Mayor, I make the motion that we approve the amendment to the airport development agreement with Prime Building Components.
Second.
Alan makes motion and Sherry seconds it. Any other discussion? Hearing none, I'll proceed to vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Same sign opposed. Motion passes. Item number 10, consider approval of a negotiated settlement between Atmos Steering Committee and Atmos Energy Corporation. Do you want to let Shelley do the report then?
Shelley can do the report.
Shelley Burnett from the Atmos Energy.
Good evening.
She gets to come here every year and let us beat up on you.
Yes. Well, tonight, I'm going to make it short and sweet. I hope that doesn't upset y'all.
Just Alan Hicks.
So, every year you guys know that we are replacing infrastructure. And we've done $5 billion over the last, I don't know how many years, but it's been several years. And we continue to replace the pipe for safety reasons, and some of the pipes, been there for quite some time. So we have annual increases, and you guys are a part of a coalition called the ACSC, which is the Atmos City Steering Committee. And you guys are a part of that consultant group. There's 171 cities in that group, and you hire the consultant to negotiate the rates for you. And so tonight, you've got a resolution. They've negotiated the rates for you, and so you've got a resolution for your approval. And I will say it's from your council. And basically, what you're approving is, on a residential customer, it's an increase over last year of a decrease from last year of 19 cents. So earlier in the year, we had a decrease of $1.25 that came from the Federal Tax Act. And then our increase for this last year is $1.06 on a residential account per month.
Okay.
So it's a net 19 cents decrease. So hopefully y'all are happy with that.
You make a report, Alan?
And I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, traditionally, the gas recovery for their infrastructure is called a GRIP. This year, the GRIP for for Atmos, sure you'd like to blame Encore,
Yes.
was the requested GRIP would have been $42 million. The rate review mechanism that we fall under because we are in Atmos City, the agreed upon rate was $24.9 million. So our involvement in that organization for the 171 cities saved us about $17 million total.
You have questions for Shelley or Alan? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I move we adopt resolution 2018-R-11 as presented.
Second.
A motion by Mark and a second by Carla. Any other questions or comments? It'll be the shortest you've ever seen here.
How about that? I just want to thank you guys for being a part of that group because it helps us hold the costs down. It actually does. And so if we have to go to the Railroad Commission, it costs a lot more in legal expenses and it makes the customer bills higher. So thank you guys for working with us and a great partnership. So thank you so
And we'll
much.
proceed to vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. Same sign opposed, motion passes. Thank you. Tourism Visitors Bureau Committee.
Okay.
Carla, I'm gonna make a presentation.
Are you making a presentation first, or do you want me to, go through the request? We had several requests for hot funds considered in our committee meeting this month. And the first request was from PAWS. They requested $5,000. The recommendation from the committee, I believe, was $3,000. Do you want to elaborate on that, or do you want me to elaborate? This is a new event. It's a takeoff on Woodstock. They're calling it Woofstock, right? Woofstock. I was really impressed. Are they here tonight? Oh, yeah. Y'all were so impressive. You were so thorough and organized, and your attention to details about this event was so impressive. And it's a great event. It's really creative. And they've already traveled to surrounding towns to advertise the event, so that was very impressive. They've already reserved a room block. And proceeds of this event are going to be used to construct a dog park, which is exciting because that not only benefits our own citizens, but those people traveling through our community, I think, will appreciate the addition of a dog park here. So this is an exciting event. It's the first time, so we're seeing if it fills up some hotel rooms. So the committee recommends $3,000 to this event.
Would you like to, anybody have any questions for PAWS organization? What do you call yourselves now?
It's PAWS, but it's Pets Are Worth Saving.
There you go. Pets are worth saving. For pets are worth saving, folks that are here.
And that
or-
$3,000 will be on advertising expenses.
Any questions, comments? I'll make one that we agree that you would form a committee to look at some of the issues of the dog park and resolve some of the concerns I mentioned at that meeting. Okay.
And this will be a concert in the park.
Yes, so we had Larry, Joe, and they were talking about earlier, the Cottonwood Crows are playing, and we only have 2 bands because the event's only 4.5 hours long. It starts at 5 and ends at 9:30. So it's not an all-day event, so we were trying to get as many people there at one time to, bring in the money to allow vendors and food trucks and people from the community to pop their own food as well. So, it's a short event this time. Next year, I'm not sure. But, we've also expanded our advertising out to further counties, that way, not ones that are within an hour away, but more so 2 hours. And we've also reached out to vendors that are coming in from over an hour, hour and a half away, and being a vendor, they still have to pack afterwards as well, so they don't get to leave at 9:30, their stuff, finishing their cleanup, so the odds of them, coming in at that reduced hotel rate, we have that in our favor as well right now.
And I like that you advertised your hotel rooms as pet friendly.
I did.
I thought that was nice. Okay.
Any questions? Hearing none, we have a motion on the floor.
I make the motion that we fund the PAWS event at $3,000.
Carla makes a motion and Brady seconds it that we approve the $3,000 hot fund for the PAWS organization. Any other discussion? Proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Same sign opposed. Motion passes. Thank you, and good luck with your project. Okay, next is for the American Junior Rodeo Association. Carla?
Okay, this event's a junior rodeo, which means they are followed by extended families to this event, such as parents and grandparents that want to watch their children and grandchildren participate in this rodeo. This is an event that does fill up the hotel rooms. They requested $2,000 to $2,500. The committee recommends $2,500.
Any questions? Hearing none, I'll accept a motion.
I move that we fund the American Junior Rodeo Association at the requested $2,500.
Second.
Sherry makes a motion and Carla seconds it to approve $2,500. The American Junior Rodeo Association. Any questions? Proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Same sign opposed. Motion passes.
All right, the next event was Tarleton State University Athletics, but am I correct? I have a note that that was pulled. Is that the one we're discussing? So that will be pulled until the next meeting.
Until the 18th. It wasn't posted on the agenda.
Okay, so it failed to get posted. All right, the last event is Larry Joe Taylor's Rhymes and Vines, which is a musical event. This particular request is for shuttle service to and from the hotels to the music event, which is at Melody Mountain Ranch. The shuttle driver will actually take account of how many hotel guests he picks up, so we will know how many hotel guests we had. They actually suggested that we split the money up. They requested $3,000, $1,500 before the event, and that we withhold $1,500 until after the event to see if they really did fill up the hotel rooms. So we are recommending that it be divided that way, $1,500 before the event and $1,500 after, for a total of $3,000. And I just want to commend Martha Taylor for the awesome job she did. She had an awesome packet put together. It certainly met the gold standard for a hot funds request. So kudos to Martha for the great job she did for council on that.
Any questions? Hearing none, I hear a motion. You made the motion to
No, I
approve?
didn't make the
Okay.
motion, but I can make the motion that we fund Rhymes and Vines at $3,000 with $1,500 paid before the event and $1,500 after the
Hear a
event.
second?
Second.
Carl makes a motion and Sherry seconds it. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Same sign opposed. Motion passes. Next item.
Okay, the last item I'll let Julie tell you about, but basically, the committee does recommend moving forward with this event on the weekend of May 31st, June 1st, and I'll let Julie tell you a little bit about this event. This is exciting, so there, I brought the cow to.
Thank you. We met with a group called American Escapes Aerosports to talk about the possibility of a hot air balloon festival at the Stephenville City Park. These festivals attract over 10,000 spectators for a 3-day event. It'd be Friday night, Saturday night, and Sunday morning. The event includes balloon glows at night and tethered rides in the mornings with fly-ins both on Friday and on Sunday. The cost for a 20 balloon festival is $40,000. We've named it Moolah Fest. We've also assembled an internal team of staff to discuss ideas to build for the times that the balloons are not involved, a festival for Stephenville. And all good festivals are built around a food product, so we figured with Moolah we would do dairy products and cheese. We have some wonderful cheese companies here in town and gourmet cheeses, so we thought of pairings for grown-ups, bounce houses for children, obviously music at the Birdsong Amphitheater, and just make a wonderful festival, combining the balloons with a modified dairy fest for Stephenville.
So I discussed this with Alan yesterday. I think at this time, to reserve the balloon company, we just have to put $1,000 down. And a lot of the expense we will try to cover because it is up to $36,000 to $40,000. But we will try to hopefully cover that with sponsorships, so we have quite some time to work on those sponsorships. So as of right now, I think I just need a motion for the $1,000 down payment at this time.
You agree with that, Alan?
Yes, sir. What we'll do is we'll bring it back to the council, either once all the sponsorships are sold, or if perhaps we didn't cover the entire amount, we would come back for the balance.
Okay, are you making that motion, Carla?
I'll make the motion at this time. We authorize Julie to reserve the date of May 31st to June 1st. Is it June 2nd? May 31st to June 2nd with the company, the balloon company, and authorize her to put down the $1,000 down payment.
Have a motion, and have your second?
Second.
Brady makes, seconds the motion. Any discussion? Were you gonna say something? You just looked like you just jump up there. Okay, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Thank you very much. Appreciate it, Carla. Julie?
Yeah,
Are
I'll
there-
say something.
Yes, sir.
A nice plug, thank you very much. They recognize the cleanup on Moolah, which fits perfectly with Moolah Fest.
Absolutely, and thanks to the Stevensville Fire Department for helping with that.
She allowed his department to come and bring the necessary equipment, and it looks like they did an outstanding job. That cow hadn't shined like that in some time. Julie,
that-
thank you.
Is that a sponge on its head?
It had a shower cap.
Oh, a shower cap, okay.
It was a shower cap. It was so cute. It was really cute.
There you go. Brett, you had something to say?
I want to visit with you about a couple of things. If you know, remember I texted you this morning about your website, and this kind of hit me, but I want to visit with you real quick. If you get the opportunity, I think that you need to look at, because hunting is a billion-dollar industry, you need to look at maybe accepting some businesses or related to that, doing leases, whatever, to try to stimulate that in the best interest of Stephenville. The second thing is that recently, my family and I were privileged enough to be up in the Black Hills, and we all of a sudden became part of Sturgis, the motorcycle rally. It wasn't our intent, but honestly, you become part of Sturgis whether you want to or not. You're up there with 500,000 people, but I think that's worth reviewing as well, because it's just tremendous, and I know there's no way that Stephenville could be anything like Sturgis, but it looked like everybody was just having a tremendous time and just money flowing everywhere. Sturgis makes 95% of their income to merchants within that rally, and I think that's 10 days, maybe, something like that. So, if you would, just please.
Thank you. Mr. Nix?
Thank you, Mayor. Our Public Works Committee met, and we had several items on the agenda. The first item that we discussed was the drainage issues that we have in the Spring Bouquet area. We had made an agreement with Freeze and Nichols to develop some plans to address some of the problems that we have in that area, and as we learned from their research and from the plans that they submitted to us, the problem is not just from that local area, but it comes from the surrounding areas as well, which compounds the problem in that area. The committee felt like that alternative number one, which was to upsize the storm drain in that area, the existing storm drain, to a much larger size, and the accommodating infrastructure improvements at that particular time would look like the best and the most cost-efficient alternative. It seems to be not within our reach at this particular time, but it was the committee's feeling that we needed to go back to Freeze and Nichols and ask staff to negotiate a professional services agreement with them to develop the plans and the specifications that would give us better data on that and give us a closer cost estimate on that to be able to look at. We also asked that once this process had begun, that the Finance Committee would be involved, as we need to determine how and when perhaps to do the funding for that. That's a two-step process, and I believe that step, the first step is in process right now, in progress right now. Once we have those numbers in hand, they'll come back to the committee. We'll be able to review them and hopefully with the aid of the finance committee come up with a way to be able to relieve some of the flooding and some of the problems that we have in that area. There's no action on that at this time, but staff will bring that agreement back. Yes, ma'am?
But I know that we talked about an amount we had available, which wasn't very much, but after the meeting, Alan, did you say that there was an error in that amount? So can you address that?
The number was $50,000, which is the amount that is included in the budget for stormwater projects. Monica had informed me that we had approximately, and I don't know the exact number, but I want to say close to $500,000 in fund reserves.
So we discussed 50,000, but there was actually more like 500,000.
In unrestricted fund
Yeah,
balance.
okay.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
Next, item B.
Yes, ma'am?
Well, and this occurred to me after we had community meeting, where I didn't ask it then, because it didn't occur to me until later, but I'm still unclear on why we can't dig the, detention pond deeper than, I think it was 3 feet. Is there some restriction under there that causes that?
I think one of the problems is when you go deeper like that, it does retain more water, but there's really no way to keep that clean and to keep it from having the problems that you have with stagnant water in a confined space like that.
Well, or, I mean, I'm assuming you would have to pump it out if it was, a deeper pond, or not keep it as a pond, but just keep it, have it in. And I did not know if that was not a cheaper option in the long run, or at least in the short term, because, to stop the flooding there, short-term goal, several years before flooding. So I guess I just had that question, because there are 2 ponds would contain 12 acre feet, right? And the single pond would contain about half that. But the single pond was only gonna be about 3 feet deep. Am I remembering this correctly from the meeting?
Sorry. I think the important thing to recall was that the options that were reviewed, the alternatives, were all to address the 100-year event. The ponds could be excavated deeper. What we found was, I think the alternative you're referring to was not including the property that was adjacent to the city-owned property.
Right, just where we did the single pond, that would be the smaller one, but
Right.
but that was the one that was only gonna be 3 feet deep, and I guess that was my question
Right.
as to, and is that a question of going down rather than up, building up a berm, and then you can release the water, gradually after the event is over with?
So
I have no, I realize this is totally not my area of expertise, but it was a question that occurred to me after we had the committee meeting that I was curious about.
So the depth of the pond that was proposed was the deepest elevation you can go where it would still drain out and use the existing infrastructure.
Was 3 feet.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Now, obviously, you can go as deep as you want to.
Okay.
Other questions?
So that might be a cheaper alternative if we looked at that,
No, ma'am, it was actually a more expensive alternative.
to dig it deeper?
Yes, ma'am.
Really? Okay.
The alternatives that were reviewed showed that excavating the detention ponds upstream were a couple $100,000 more expensive than replacing the infrastructure that exists currently.
Other questions?
To achieve the same amount of relief from the flooding issues.
That's correct. Yes, sir.
But on top of that, you had the water and sewer would be addressed when the main line, the sewer, the stormwater line was addressed in that street, is that correct?
Yes, sir. The added benefit to replacing the stormwater infrastructure that exists currently is the replacement of the either galvanized or, duct line or cast iron water line and the clay sewers, and the replacement of the street as well.
And there are clay sewers out in that area?
There are clay sewers in that area, yes, ma'am. So the upside is the existing infrastructure is 18 inches in diameter, and what we would be needing is a 54-inch diameter pipe. So when we go to replace that, obviously the equipment necessary to put that in is going to crush those sewer lines. And it doesn't make sense to not replace the water lines and repave the street.
Okay, Mr.
Thank
Nix?
The next item on the agenda, Mayor, was a
Thank you,
lease-
Alan.
was a lease agreement with Wesley Wood of Wood Cattle Company. This is a lease agreement for the 536 acres that the city purchased on Highway 67. He has had this lease for several years, and we've had satisfactory dealings with him. I know personally he's repaired the fence several times because vehicles have veered through it and taken it down, and he's done so at his own expense, which he agreed to do, and he has taken care of that. And it is to our advantage to have someone on the property to not only help with the fencing, but to help make sure that it is maintained properly and that we don't have unwanted guests and visitors coming and going. The recommendation of the committee was to increase the term of the lease to a 3-year term rather than an annual, to allow him to have a better opportunity to plan and to plow and plant and harvest crops, and if he desires and has the opportunity and the weather, to be able to clean out a couple of the existing stock tanks that are on there. The recommendation of the committee was to approve the agreement with Wood Cattle Company for a 3-year lease term, and subject to all the conditions that were in the original term with that addition on there. And I will make that as a motion to approve that lease.
Second.
Alan makes a motion to approve the lease, and Mark seconds it. Discussion.
Alan, do you remember, did y'all keep the, I believe it's a 90-day cancellation policy in writing? Is that still?
Yes, sir.
Part of the
Yes, sir.
contract?
It remains in there.
Okay. Did y'all get a chance to discuss the restriction of hunting rights, to retain the hunting rights?
No, sir, we did not.
Okay, fair enough.
Other questions? Hearing none, proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Same sign opposed, motion passes. Mr. Nix?
Next item on our agenda was the Garfield ground storage tank. That tank, we have planned for several years to do the rehabilitation of that tank to continue to use it as part of our storage capacity. We took several bids on that, and the low bidder was NG Painting of Kerrville. They came in over $123,000 less than we had budgeted for that, and the speculation was because they had less mobilization and transportation fees to get their employees and their equipment to our site to be able to do the work. It was also considered that the $123,000 plus approximately $18,000 more could be used to drill test wells on that 536 acres to begin the process of developing that as a viable source and as a source for our city's potable water. The recommendation of the committee, and I will make the motion, that we award the bid for the rehab of the Garfield ground storage tank to NG Painting.
Second.
Al makes a motion, and Mark seconds it to approve the contract is brought before the council. Any other questions? Hearing none, proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Same sign opposed, motion passes.
Next item on our agenda was the contract with Park Hill Smith and Cooper to develop the 536-acre well field. One of the challenges that we face is being able to take this tract of land and develop it as effectively and efficiently as possible, and that means not only studying what lies under the ground, which the test wells will provide, also be in compliance with our groundwater district and also be a good neighbor to those people around us. Park Hill Smith and Cooper presented us with a contract that would provide that for us, and also for an additional sum of not to exceed $142,371. We would be able to drill 5 test wells on that and have the results from the samples of those test wells to be able to include with an application to the, for possible funding from the Texas Water Development Board to help us develop that. All of these will fit nicely with what we had planned and what we had intended, and this will provide another important piece of the information about what lies under the ground and where we want to begin to develop and how to develop that. The committee voted unanimously to recommend approval of the professional services agreement with Park Hill Smith and Cooper, as well as include the drilling of the test wells on the property at the same time. And I make that as a motion.
I'll second.
Makes the motion, and Mark seconds that we approve the Wellfield Development Project as presented. Any other comments, questions?
Ask,
Yes, sir.
Monica just one time, I asked it before, we'll get it on record here tonight, the $18,000 difference between the 142 and the savings from the other is available. She said yes.
She's not lied to us yet. We'll proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Same sign opposed, motion passes. Next item.
Next item on our agenda was a master infrastructure management plan. In the same manner, we gave staff the opportunity to develop a professional services proposal from Freeze and Nichols. They will basically, for the fee, begin to develop what we consider is an integral part of our management of our city utilities and our infrastructure for water, sewer, street, and storm drains as well. And they will also do a GIS-based comprehensive capital improvement plan that will help us as we make plans for the future to be able to go ahead and utilize the infrastructure that we have and make improvements in that infrastructure as we improve and expand into other areas also. The committee voted unanimously to recommend approval of the professional service agreement with Freeze and Nichols, and I would make the motion that we approve that agreement with Freeze and Nichols for the master infrastructure management plan.
I'll second that.
Al makes a motion that we approve the master infrastructure plan as presented, and Mark seconds it. Any discussion?
I had a question.
Ms. Carla.
I know that we had budgeted for this, but having this plan, I believe I remember us saying, because this was in last year's budget, so it's been a while. Doesn't having this plan in hand allow us to apply for grant monies when it comes up that we couldn't otherwise apply for if we didn't have plans in hand?
Yes, ma'am. One of the components of it is our capital improvements plan that we've been working towards since I've been here. And that, just that in and of itself will give us some advantage to apply for grants.
Okay.
Any other questions? Proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Same sign opposed, motion passes. Item F.
The last item on our agenda, Mayor, was an amendment to the exclusive franchise agreement that we have for the collection, hauling, and disposal of the waste in the city limits of Stephenville. Amendment number 2 proposes to extend the term of the agreement for 5 years. Will expire in December 31, 2023. It is worth noting, I believe, that there were no recommended fee changes in this extension of the contract, and the committee discussed that we, as a city of Stephenville, have a much better contract for our citizens because of the multi-time-a-week pickup and the other services that Waste Connections provide for us here in the city of Stephenville. The committee voted unanimously to approve the second amendment to the exclusive franchise agreement with Progressive Waste, DBA Waste Connections of Texas. Mayor, I would make a motion that we extend that and approve that contract amendment.
I'll make the motion we approve the amendment number 2. There a second?
Second.
Mark seconds the motion. Any comments? I just want to make one comment here that we had some complaints in the past about some service areas, some oil in the ground, some other things, and y'all have worked really well with us to fix that problem. You have a person that's local. Y'all have made some changes also. Have an on-site person. I appreciate that very much. So it seems like things are going really well, so I appreciate that very much. Any other questions? Proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. All, same sign opposed. Okay, motion passes.
Mayor, that concludes my report, and I'm sorry, gentlemen, I failed to acknowledge your presence here, but I likewise would like to thank you for what you provide to our community, not only in your service, but in your timeliness of addressing issues and complaints, and thank you very much, and we look forward to continuing to do business with y'all. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Mayor, that concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Nix. Personnel Committee, Sherry?
Yes, we just had, one item, and it was to, amend the, code compliance officer job description, to code enforcement and health inspector. The, staff also has recommended pay and certification pay to reflect the responsibilities of this position, which will be broader. One of the things the city does right now is we contract with, an individual to come and do the health inspections at the restaurants. And, sometimes there is, gaps if there's a needed inspection or a complaint in getting that person here. It also costs the city money. Jeremy, am I correct that it's about somewhere between $20,000 and $30,000 if we end up making this part of this position, that it'll eventually?
Full-time, yes, it'll be $30,000 if it becomes a full-time.
Thing that they're doing. And then did you have one to add to this?
I think you captured it pretty well.
Okay. It was, Personnel Committee voted 3-0 to recommend to the full council amending the job description for code compliance officer to code enforcement and health inspector with pay and certification pay.
Any questions? Do I hear a motion?
I will make the motion that we amend the code compliance officer job description to code enforcement and health inspector with pay and certification pay.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Alan seconds that. Any other discussion? Proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Same sign opposed. Motion passes.
And that concludes my report, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Nominations report.
Okay, Mayor, thank you. Again, I apologize. I had a previous engagement during this meeting, but on August 28th, the nominations committee met to discuss the possibility of utilizing a state and federal consultant or third party to look at these type of funds. At that time, the committee, as I understand it, agreed to look at additional information to follow up on this, and the following day, Mayor Savine and Councilmember McClinton contacted such a firm, I believe a gentleman by the name of Todd Smith. And what I'd like to do is just turn that back over to y'all gentlemen
Okay.
and see if there's something that y'all would like to report on.
I personally know Todd, so I asked Mark if he would participate in that. If you want to reference some of the conversation you had, it was about it was 56 minutes, because I was the one on the phone. My counted minutes on there. It was a 56-minute conversation.
Well, how high a view do you want?
Pretty high level.
A high level?
Yeah, pretty high level.
Okay, so I did talk to this guy for an hour, nice gentleman. Several things. We started the conversation and he talked about Stephenville, comparing Stephenville to other communities. Stephenville in the last 4 years has received $450,000 worth of grants. For just for reference, DeLeon in that same time frame has received $750,000. We also talked about Pflugerville and Corsicana and Hillsborough and other communities about the same size. I want to be like Corsicana. They've received in the last 4 years $7.5 million in grants from the state of Texas. The other communities have received somewhere between $1 and $2 million worth of grants. So we have not done we've not kept up with the Joneses. And we talked specifically about TDA programs. That's where we focused most of our attention, was Texas Department of Agriculture programs. And those are federally funded from HUD and from USDA. We talked specifically about a USDA program that I hadn't heard mentioned before, but that's one where regardless of what else you're doing, if you're courting an entity to town, for every FTE, you can apply and receive $25,000 up to $1 million per project. That's money that's dedicated for infrastructure. broad latitude given to the community for how you spend that money, streets, sewer, water, stormwater. You can pay to move electric lines, you can pay to move gas transmission lines with that money. It's a good program, and that money is in addition to anything else that you're applying for that particular thing. So we talked about, again, the TDA stuff. Most of it's done by the calendar, so you can apply once, maybe twice a year for a particular program. But we also talked about pop-up opportunities. He specifically talked about a $20 million block that was sent to Idaho that didn't get dispersed in Idaho, and that was a HUD program. So Ben Carson's office got in touch with the Texas Ag Commissioner and said, hey, I got $20 million, you got projects. And that's money on those pop-up opportunities. You've got a very narrow window. You've got 30 to 60 days max to get your project in place and make that application. And then the money's dispersed. And so we talked specifically about Spring Bouquet. And I think this is why Stephenville needs to have a shovel-ready project with as much underlying documentation as possible ready at all times for one of these opportunities. Whether we deal with this guy or not, we need to have that thing sitting on the shelf so we can make application when it comes up. Also talked about legislative activity, talked about partnering with Tarleton. Tarleton has a good record at the legislative level, getting funding, and so, we partnered with Tarleton and we might could bring some benefit there. So I'll just say a couple of things. One is, well, what was I going to say? It was something really good. That was good. It was talking about something Jeremy indicated at a meeting previous, where he talked about not necessarily meeting the requirements for a program. Well, this guy indicated that every program that's available out there, is especially the TDA stuff, but every program that's available out there, just because it says in the fine print you don't qualify, everything's open to exemption, waiver, special consideration, and so that's done at the discretion of, in the case of the TDA, the Ag Commissioner. They have final say on that. So maybe they have to go to Washington to get some kind of approval, but it's at the discretion of the Ag Commissioner. So just because it says no doesn't mean you don't keep kicking. And then the other thing, I'll just finish with this. The other thing he said was that Stephenville is uniquely positioned right now and for maybe the next 2 years because of who our Ag Commissioner is in the state of Texas and because of the relationships that he's developed at the federal level. He was very involved at the federal level, and because of that, we are uniquely positioned to take advantage of some of the stuff that's available out there. And I would simply say that, to me it comes down to a question of leverage, and with a $25 million budget, we need to be leveraging some money. And so I would support an effort to authorize Mr. Barnes to enter into negotiations, and I'd make that as a motion here tonight.
Okay. Alan, you'll make a comment?
No, sir. I've had a couple of exposures to, well, yes, sir. I'm sorry.
Thank you. I was confused what you said.
I've had a couple of meetings with Mr. Smith, one on this matter and one on another matter. He is very knowledgeable about the inner workings of how the legislative system works, who the legislators are, their back channel folks. He gave me an example one time of a gentleman who needed to talk to the governor. Phone call was made to the governor's scheduling person, and that gentleman was told to meet the governor at this door at this time, and you got a 5-minute walk with the governor. So not only will he assist us with very specific things, there are very broad issues that he has knowledge about as well.
Okay, any other comments, questions? These are the shovel ready, and with shovel ready, I keep calling them projects on the shelf ready to go. We need to be ready for whether it's whoever it is. There's some funds out there we need to start getting going after. Okay, Mark makes a motion that we allow or instruct Alan to enter into negotiations with Mr. Smith.
Second.
We have a motion, second by Mark, or seconds by Rhett. Any other discussion? Hearing none, let's proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Same sign opposed. Motion passes.
Is this like Mr. Smith goes for Washington?
Absolutely. There you go.
And he did a really good job up there.
He
so.
did.
There you go.
And we're probably the only ones on this council, well, Doug maybe, old enough to even know what you're talking about.
Now, come on, just because I'm the oldest one on this council.
Is it?
Oh, I love
You
that
know,
movie. Yeah, it's a great movie.
After Boyd got off and Jerry, I'm the oldest one now. Okay.
Doug's much older than I am.
There you go. Okay, that's enough.
Yeah,
We're getting back on the
amen.
agenda now. Mark, Finance Committee.
Finance Committee met August 28th, and we had one item on the agenda, and that was to look at the possibilities for a new auditor for the city of Stephenville. And Monica, if you want to, I can do it, it doesn't matter. You're so comfortably seated, I'll just do it. The presentation and the recommendation from the council was that we go with a firm called Brooks Watson. And I will just, for a little background, that was not the highest rated auditing firm that we did. It was 1 point lower than the highest rated, but when Monica did some background work on the first company, she found some unsatisfactory, isn't that the way, unsatisfactory work? Isn't that the way you pronounce it or say it? And so she brought that to our attention, and we went with the second, but there was a single point difference between the scores on the two firms. So the Finance Committee voted unanimously to bring forward to the full council with a positive recommendation, the firm of Brooks Watson. And I would make a motion to the effect that we engage Brooks Watson as our auditing firm.
I'll second that.
Mark makes the motion and Carla seconds it. Any discussion? I appreciate you looking at the question I had and the answer. Questions, comments? Hearing none, proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Same sign opposed. Motion passes. Thank you. Monthly budget report.
She's gonna have to get up anyway.
Oh, she was, I'm sorry. You've already stretched your legs.
Here.
Mayor, council, this is our budget report for July 31st, 2018, which is 10 months into our fiscal year. We're actually still on track. We're maybe a little bit better in a few areas of where we anticipated to be. For our property tax, we received $25,000 in the month of July, which is $528,000 increase over the funds that were collected same time last year. The county normally collects about 99.5% of the property taxes for us through July, and what we've collected so far is about 1.05% over our budget. Our sales tax, we received $471,000 in sales tax in July, which is $208,000 over our target budget through July 31st. We've received $247,000 or 5.18% more than this time last year. For the hot funds, we received $351,000 in hotel occupancy taxes through July. Last year was $297,000. We spent $288,000 in hotel occupancy tax funds through July, and last year was $293,000. The target budget for our operating revenue is $20 million. We received $21.6 million in operating revenue, which is $1.6 million over our budget. And this, of course, is a result of our property taxes, which were due January 31st, as well as our sales taxes, other taxes, service charges, and grants. For the target budget for operating expenditures is $16.9 million. We have expended $14.9 million, which is $2 million under our budget. Don't get too excited yet, the year's not over. The operating revenue received last year was $20.5 million, as compared to the current year's $21.6 million, which is $1.1 million increase, and that's due to our property taxes, sales taxes, and our service charges. The operating expenditures last year were $15.4 million as compared to the current year's $14.9 million, which is $574,000 decrease. And we've spent $861,951 of the $875,000 that we budgeted for the street maintenance program.
Good job, Nick.
Are there any questions?
Would you just a request, would you do on the sales tax, do a, say, a 12-month rolling average for, let's say, the last 4 years or so, and send it to the council? Kind of give us an idea of the trends on sales tax?
Sure.
I'd appreciate that. Any other questions? Hearing none, are we going to, we have to vote to accept the financial, we don't have to vote for this, just report, okay. Thank you very much. Okay, Stephenville Type B Economic Development Authority update. Jeff. Sorry you've been sitting here for 2 hours.
Well, good evening, Mr. Mayor, Council, Handsome Hunks.
What was that?
I'm sorry, you sit there for 2 hours and
There
that's
you
what
go.
happens.
You had too much time to think.
I really did.
He's bored over there.
And the thing is, nobody really knows who I was speaking about.
Yeah.
I wanted to, I'm doing something tonight that I really don't like to do, honestly, and it's because it is, there's always things that get thrown in your way, and that is report on about a 100-day time period. Next week, sometime next week, I go into my first 100 days in. And as you know, through interviews and other things, people always ask you, what do you plan to do your first 100 days? Or here's what's expected, et cetera, et cetera. And I just know I've got a little gun shy over that because the first time I was here in Stephenville, the first 100 days, we had 9/11 hit. That kind of throws everything out of whack a bit. I have colleagues who are down on the coast of both Louisiana and in Texas, and in 2005 when Rita hit, that pretty much changed their trajectory as well, as in 2017 when Harvey hit. Those things change what and how you do things. So your plan A, your plan what B, your plan C, everything gets thrown out the window and you end up with plan, well, whatever it is, Z, I guess. But either way, I did write down a few things because my board sort of asked me to do some of those things. And I wanted to kind of figure out where I was. So I've started looking back, and for the last few hours and days, we've been thinking about the kinds of things that we've been involved with. I've talked to a lot of our constituents, a lot of our citizens, and they're used to some of the communication pieces, or reading some of the articles, or doing some of the other things, and seeing that, hey, things are happening. We're seeing some dirt turn, we're seeing some other things happen. But what else goes on in the life of an economic development authority? So I'm just going to sort of hit on the highlights. I get the honor, for those in the audience that don't know, I'm going to be able to visit with council in detail about a couple of the projects going on, and I thank y'all for allowing me that opportunity a little bit later today. But just for some of the highlights, in addition to meeting with personnel from every single project that's existing, I've had over 200 meetings in that time period. And those meetings are, range from a variety of things, but most of them are economic development specific. We've coordinated or hosted 2 large-scale site visits. We've met with 6 different site developers that some have been involved with us before and some have not. We've closed out 2 performance agreements that were hanging from before. We have rewritten the facade improvement grant application to include 2 new and specific policies, including changing the strategic vision of the program to target specific areas of town. We've begun an education and marketing strategy, which includes group presentations, and have published 2 articles. We've facilitated an initiative for workforce development through our transitioning soldiers out of Fort Hood. Many of you are familiar with that. We've hosted our congressman to discuss business-specific governmental efforts. We've met with the North Central Texas Council of Governments to discuss an aviation-related effort that has led to a proposal we just received this week for Stephenville to become the first of its kind unmanned aerial systems academy that addresses CTE, STEM, and economic development objectives. I've had the honor of being nominated to the North Central Texas Economic Development District Board. We've participated in the City Council Planning Retreat, and thank you for that offer. We've initiated a process to communicate with Tarleton students, specifically to collect additional data and relay community and business happenings. We've met with local manufacturers as well as their HR folks to collect data and help position CEDA as an ally and partner for the retention and expansion opportunities that are coming. We've assisted in the Tourism Center's Texas Music Friendly certification effort. We've established a personnel and policies task force and have begun writing those manuals. We've established a budget task force, have voted on and presented our completed budget. We have completed a listing of measurements and goals for fiscal year 18 and 19, which has been updated for those that were at our meeting yesterday. It's been updated again, so I look forward to sharing that on Thursday. And we've conducted a listening tour, meeting with not only every CEDA board member, which would be expected, but I've also met with each and every one of you individually to talk about various things. We've met with various other community leaders and stakeholders as part of our ongoing tour. Just this week, we have received 2 RFPs, and to Mark's point about the pop-ups, That's exactly a point. And the other thing about those is these are projects that are would take place in 2020. That's how far out that's before they even start anything. And lastly, we've grown our portfolio of working projects from $60 million in June when I arrived to $78 million in July to currently we're handling $220 million of projects that we hope to see through to fruition. And probably doesn't mean anything to you guys, but we've also moved a wife, 3 kids, 2 dogs, and 13 pods of furniture and belongings from North Carolina to Texas. That's about 1,200 miles in 7 states, so we got all that done. The only other thing is I wanted to mention is we've got a long way to go. These are just some reports and highlights of some of the things that have been ongoing in the last few weeks. And what we intend to do is continue that to go towards the end goal, and that's sort of what you talked about in the budget discussion, excuse me. And that is to help with that sales tax increase and the overall economic base. So maybe we won't have those worries about it next year whenever we're going through that process.
Questions for Jeff? Just FYI, I met with some attorneys the other day in Lubbock, Texas, from the Department of Justice on an issue that they're doing in the state of Texas. And it was interesting, he brought up moolah. And so I had my little thing, my little moolah cow, and I got to go out there and get my moolah out of my
Making the
pickup.
rounds, Julie.
And I mean, think about it, it's in Washington now. And so I got to hand them that, and so we were talking about economic changes in Steamville, Texas, and 2 of those folks have come through town before. And they mentioned the changes that are happening in the word that's out in the community. So I appreciate your efforts.
Absolutely. I appreciate it.
Anybody
Thank you
else?
guys as well.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Get back to the agenda here. Okay. Next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. I hear a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve consent as presented.
Mark moves that we approve the consent agenda as presented. Second. Alan seconds that. Any discussion?
I have a comment.
Okay.
On the Texas Music Friendly Community Initiative, last year when we looked at the hot funds and how we were spending them, people said to me, we don't have any tourism in Steamville, so what are you proposing to spend them on? Because we have no tourism to spend them on. And I would say to people, well, you have to think outside the box. We don't have dinosaur tracks and we don't have Six Flags. So I think that this music initiative is a great example of thinking outside the box to find a unique way to market Steamville, Texas. And I think this will be a feather in our cap when we get this, what's it called, a certification or?
Music friendly designation.
Anyway, a certification as music-friendly community. And so I want to commend Julie on taking the initiative and the lead in getting us this certification. And CETA's working on that too, because there's a joint project they have to do to get that through. So thank you all for thinking outside the box.
Okay, we'll proceed to vote on the consent agenda. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Same sign opposed. Okay, we'll approve the consent agenda. Comments by city administrator.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, as Jeff just mentioned, we do have a joint workshop with the council and CETA this Thursday, September the 6th. And just to let everybody know, it's at 4 p.m. The reason it's so early is because later that evening, we have the official opening of the Bosque River Trail Phase 2 with a 5K and a 1 mile fun run. And you'll be interested to know that many of your executive staff members plan to walk/run that race. It's not that anybody was challenged to do that or anything. We have council committee meetings on Tuesday, September the 18th at 5:30. We have a joint work session with council and P&Z on Thursday, September 13th at 5:30. One of the things that I do want to mention is we're going to begin scheduling town hall meetings to discuss the proposed charter amendments with our constituents. One of the things that we are going to do is we're going to have them someplace other than at a city facility in hopes that we'll get greater attendance, maybe at a church or a school than we would at a city building. The regular council meeting for October is October 2nd, and we are accepting applications for boards and commissions until Thursday, November the 8th, 2018. Mr. Mayor, that concludes my comment.
Thank you, sir. Anybody have any questions for Alan?
Thursday, November
Thursday, November the 8th.
Okay. Council comments. Mark?
I'd just say all schools are back in session. Wish everybody a productive and safe school year.
And I wanted to mention that my favorite event of the year is coming up, and that's Dinner in the Stacks at Tarleton. I just love Dinner in the Stacks at Tarleton. And that's on September 15th. It's put on by Friends of the Library, so you can Google that and find where you can reserve your spot to go to that event. And it's an awesome event that I think is overlooked in the community, so.
Freddie?
No comment.
Brett? Alan?
Couple of things. Number one, Chief, I have had a couple of opportunities to enjoy rides in some of your equipment to the local hospital. I can tell you that the people that we have under your guidance and under your instructions do an outstanding job taking care of those of us who can't help ourselves, and we need someone with the experience and the equipment to do that. Please pass along a big thank you from me to them, to all of them, because I know they do well. I know that it's a tiring and trying job, but they do it very well. We are blessed to have a department like yours and a department like Chief King's in our city that take care of us and provide for our safety and well-being and those things that, as Rhett said, we can't do for ourselves, but they do an exemplary time of that. Thank you very much to both of you gentlemen, and please pass along that to your departments for me.
Next, not will, but those guys do a good job no matter who the regular is.
Yes.
What's the comment he's making? Oh, never mind. Sherry? Brandon?
Thank again, everybody, for coming out, everybody watching it. I want to thank the staff for my first budget process. I guess we've kind of got a bow on that. So thank you for all your hard work, the cuts, the tough decisions that you had to make, and fellow council members for helping me through that process too. I mean it when I say I'm a believer that we need property tax reform, and it starts in Austin, Texas, and I hope you join me and you lobby as we go. Your state legislatures put 7% increases in the last legislative session that had to do with these appraisals. So get involved, talk to your representatives. I plan to. I hope this council plans to. And let's do some real property tax reform.
Okay. I have three different things. On the town hall, Alan, would you also do some written description of that and put in papers as well, so those who can't come to the town halls will also get that information?
Yes, sir, and one of the things that we are going to do is we're going to pattern a document much like the city of Buda did, where there's a, for lack of better terms, mock ballot that they can carry into the ballot box if they want to vote for one or against another, that they'll be able to have for reference in the voting booth.
Okay, thank you. Also, I've been in communication with Representative Pat Fallon, who's running for state senate for our district. And he's asked to have a meeting with me, and Mr. Barnes, if you and Jeff would be willing to participate in that when he gets, I don't know what the date is yet, but when it does, I'll give you all a call.
Pat Fallon is the speaker of the Republican Women's Meeting later this month. So if you want an opportunity to speak to a representative in person, excellent opportunity, because you usually get that opportunity. And that's the last Thursday of the month.
Exactly, thank you. And the last thing is I've spoken with Mr. Harrison about an ethics policy for the council staff and committees, and he's agreed to take that on as a committee. So in the future agenda, they'll be discussing that for a future policy. Anything else? Well, then, in compliance with the provision of the Texas Open Meetings Law, Subchapter D, Government Code, Vernon's Texas Codes annotated in accordance with Section 551087, Economic Development Negotiations for Project Blue, Select, and Tarleton Crossings, and Section 551.074, Personnel Matters, Deputy City Secretary position. We'll stand adjourned. We'll be back at the end.